All right, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, a show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we all love. We don't have a guest today because I dropped the ball on following up with people.
It's also the holidays. Hard to get hold of people.
Yeah, I think we have a solid plan of action, I think, for 2024, which I think once we implement it, it'll move along a lot smoother
hmm
than this
Yeah,
is.
I didn't know when you wanted to talk about if you wanted to wait a little bit more before to talk about that or not. I'm not
I
sure.
mean, I don't mind talking about it because if somebody has ideas, I'm willing for people to give me more ideas.
No, sure.
On the base level, the idea was, Melissa and I were talking. Melissa Sue Stanley, who's been a guest on the show, and I were talking about this on the way to LuxCon, where she had a point where like we have a lot of random artists and guests on, which is fine, except sometimes people want to take in a lot of information on one topic in multiple segments if possible. So the idea was we would do three guests at a time, and those three guests will be talking about something similar. And so for starters, we're going to do one with art directors. So we'll have three different art directors on, not at the same time, one at a time, and then you get three different perspectives, right? Because I'm hoping to get one from the book side, so that'll be publishing, one from the gaming side, and then I don't know where the third one's going to come from. So
Well, we'll figure it out.
yeah,
But
we'll
yeah,
figure it out.
that's the general idea. Like
Right.
I think another way you pitched it to me was comic book artists and
Right.
possibly talking to cover artists within that. So it's like three different perspectives on that.
Right. Because everyone who does covers for comics always has if we get like Miles on, for example, Miles, if he's got his way of doing the comic book, the covers, and he's got his way of dealing with art directors, and then you have someone like, I don't know, Rob Liefeld, which would be funny
Yeah.
if we got Rob Liefeld. Um, but yeah, so anyone watching, if you have ideas, feel free to, there's an email link in all the videos, or if you know us personally, just message us, because I would like to do stuff on like specific top, like a bunch. I found myself in the last couple weeks getting into a couple conversations with people about X-Men comics. And in my head, I was like, "Oh, it'd be cool to talk about X-Men comics," but I don't want to do 3 episodes on X-Men, but it'd be cool maybe do three different things on Marvel comics, because there's a whole thing about like how they, you know, you know, in short, like how they built up their empire to a degree, how they had to sell a bunch of characters because they thought they were failing as a company, right?
Right.
Um, and that's why you have all these like licenses all over the place, and then how now they're like, Disney bought them, right? So they're one of the biggest. Technically, their movie side, entertainment side, is back in play, but the comic side is still the
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
I guess. I don't know how their comic side's doing actually.
Uh, about as well as any other comic these days.
I mean, they're doing better than DC, so
Uh, I mean, I would be curious to hear from some artists that are working in it because the
right.
little bits I've heard here and there, it's like, yeah, it's still shitty, still like $200 a page, if that.
Yeah, I mean, these companies aren't paying you anymore, like any more than they normally do. Like, I mean, I think it took 15 years before WotC was like, all right, well, or not even 10 years, maybe. I don't remember, but they just
Yeah.
raised the costs on how much they pay their artists, right? And it used to be really low. So,
Well, I was gonna say, so like just as this quick tangent on this kind of thing,
mhm.
because we won't get like deep into the weeds
Yeah,
on
we
this
don't
kind
want
of
to go
thing.
deep into this. Yeah.
No, we'll save it for like a future episode. But like, I do know in most cases, the page rates has either stayed the same or
Mm.
they've actually backslid and gotten worse.
Oh, wow, that's not good.
Yeah, which is like Jesus Christ. Like, I have a whole thing about this.
I'm sure, that's and ideally what I'd like to get is like a guest who can be like, you don't want a guest who's completely praising the fact that they're doing comic arts. Like, I want to know like the nitty-gritty side of it, because the idea is anyone who's learning about it, there's so many people in our industry who are like, I want to do comic book covers, and you're like, cool. But then as they do a few, like I just think about like our friends as an example, to jump away from the comic book side, friends who want to do magic cards, right? And magic is a good example of this. Most of us grew up thinking, I want to work on a magic card, I want to work on a magic card, and then you finally get the magic card, and most of my friends are super happy with it. I work for WotC. I'm making magic cards. It's the thing I love. But some of them, when you talk to them, they're just like, oh my god, this is so difficult. Like I'm not getting paid enough, and some of them
Right.
are getting cards that aren't even being physically printed. They're just going to now the
Yeah, a
digital
lot of
side,
that whatever that I forgot what they
something
brand
with
that
an
is.
A.
Legends or so, I don't know. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
with the Doctor Who stuff, the Lord of the Rings stuff,
I mean, they printed
all of that.
those.
No, well,
Yeah, they did. I have
oh,
the Lord of the
yes,
Rings
yes.
stuff.
No, sorry, yeah, no, I'm thinking of, like, the creation standpoint where it's like it had to be a digital only
Right.
piece,
So we've got friends in our
and
group right now who have got cards made, and they're only digital. And then I was like, okay, well,
right, that's
how
right,
do you
yeah,
make
some of them
money off
are.
that? Because the secondary market for these artists is selling a print
Yeah.
or selling the proof, right? You get the card, like, like,
Well, we also know some
like
artists
that
that
card there is Ben's
totally.
card, right? And that's
Right.
a proof of another. There, it's a proof of another card. You can't really see it as a tree, but their secondary market is they paint on the back of those cards or draw on the
Mhm.
back of those cards, and you can't do that if your work's just digital because apparently they're not allowed to print it out.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I
No, and we know some artists that have totally said, like, "Well, I'm not gonna do that then," even
right,
though they
and I feel
wanted
like
to.
that's even though they wanted to. I think that is a step in the right direction, right? Like, because I think if enough artists are like, no, man, if you're not even because again, you make the extra money off the selling it later, right? Like the project I'm working on for the board game house. Like they're gonna make their money off the board game, but the way I make my they don't board game houses don't pay a lot. And
Yeah.
surprise, surprise, anyone who works for board games, they don't pay that
No,
much.
not at all.
And
Oh,
they
and,
they
like,
talk to you like they've paid you a lot, when in theory they've actually not paid you a lot.
like, a frame of reference, we're recording this, like, roughly, like, a few hours after Hasbro announced they're laying off, like, I think a fifth of their workforce.
Dude, and they laid them off from the they laid off like WotC art directors.
Yeah, like, 1,100 employees, 1,100 employees. So it's like, yeah, there's some
Like
people that are gonna go
why didn't they
there.
let him go from the Hasbro side? It makes no sense to me.
Mhm. I don't know.
Mm.
But that's another whole
But I mean, that's
thing,
what I'm saying, right? They
like,
and the thing is,
corporate malfeasance.
right? Because when you look at, because they can pay you more if you. Here's the thing, and someone can disagree with me if they want to, but they could pay you more if they wanted to, but they're not gonna because there's always another artist out there. Like if they're like we're gonna pay you X, and I say nah, that's not enough money, fine.
They will find someone to fill that.
There's always somebody who will fill that spot, right? So like a lot of these
Yes.
artists are operating on this tension of like, if I say no to this, they're never gonna call me back again, which might be true.
Yeah. It's a
But
very
do you really want to
real
work for a
fear.
company like that? Like, do you want to work for a company that if that's your level of what you're dealing with?
Yeah,
Because
no,
you
honestly, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to, just because I know that, like, yeah, that's
right. I
sucks.
mean, I've talked to artists who are
It
have
puts
like
you in a
turned down
bad
jobs.
laboring position.
Right. I mean, I've talked to artists who are like, I had to turn down the job, and now I feel bad that I turned it down. I don't think they were going to call me back, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe. Like, um, I can use myself as an example. I did I don't. There's no bad blood. I did a game for Renegade Games. It was everyone liked it. They contacted me back and asked me if I want to do the international version of the game. But at the time, it was literally like I want to say it was like 6 months or 7 months after Violet was born. So I had a
Mhm.
7 month old in the house, right? And they were like, they want the pay wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but the turnaround time was like 6 weeks, and I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah, no.
And I asked for more time, and they couldn't do it. Then I said, then unfortunately, I have to pass. I have to take a pass on it. It would have
Yeah.
been cool to have, and it wasn't like they were going to reprint what I already did internationally. They wanted me to redraw. They wanted me to draw some new cards to put in the same game internationally. And
Yeah.
one of the cards sounded like a TARDIS, which would have been cool.
Oh,
You
yeah, that
know,
would've been awesome.
I can't officially say if it was Doctor Who or not, but it sounded like a TARDIS, and I really didn't want to say no to it because in my head, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. So in my head, I was like,
Right.
"Holy crap, is this Doctor Who?" But I remember I was just like, "I can't do it," and I have since turned down a bunch. it might just be me. It might be you might be the same, but I find once you say no a few times, it gets easier to be like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
I
understand.
mean, I've had to turn away stuff like just where, yeah, it's just like timing, bad timing,
Yeah.
and like I'll be honest with be like, wow, you guys caught me at a bad time. Like I'm about
Yep.
like 2 years ago, it was kind of like there was one company that I had worked with before, and they contacted me. They contacted me on like two separate occasions that year. And both times it was like, wow, you guys contact me right before before I'm going into surgery.
Mm,
I'm not going to be able to work for you because I'm going to be recovering.
right.
And then the second time was within that same year. It was like I was attending a wedding out of state, so I was like, oh,
Mm.
I can't really get to this right now because your
You're not even
deadline
in
is
the. Yeah. You're like, I'm not here.
yeah, your deadline's in like 2 days. I'm still going to be here, like doing stuff with family and everything. I'm not going to be able to tackle it. But, like, just letting them know, like, just up front, like, "Hey, I'm sorry, this is what it is, but I would love to work with you guys again in the future," kinda deal.
That's basically, if there's no animosity towards a company, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I gotta say no. I'll do my best to, you
Yeah.
know. It depends on the situation, I guess. I'm like, I'm not gonna go deep diving into it because I would like to do a whole episode on working with board gaming houses and stuff. But like, my current project is fine, but it's a little stressful at certain points, and I don't feel like I want to do any more, board games at the moment. But I do still want to do a magic card if it does come down the pipeline. But I'm also now thinking it all sounds too stressful. Like,
Yeah.
because I talked to my friends who are working for Magic, and some of these guys are pulling like, I'm not gonna name names, but one of our friends is like, he's been at it for like nonstop, like 72 hours straight, no sleep, just working on things. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to kill yourself to do this thing.
No. Not at
And
all.
sacrificing sleep is a horrible thing to do yourself. And he's banging on the fact that he's like, I'm young, I'll be fine. It's like, no, doesn't matter how
No,
old you are, your body's your business is gonna kick
yeah.
out, man. So um when I hear stories like that, I'm like, I don't know if I want. I like working on my own stuff personally, just because there's stress, but there's also it's more fun and it's
Well, yeah, it's your
less.
own project, so you're kinda
Yeah,
like
it's,
you're the one that's kinda like, "Well, I'm willing to pay into this," kinda thing. So it's not
yeah,
like you don't feel like you're being held against your own will on this. Like
yeah,
our friend that's staying up late or whatever, where they might feel it's an outside pressure on that.
yeah. I mean, in his case, he's getting a decent paycheck out of it, but I'm also like, man, you need to take a break. Like,
Yeah.
so like these kind of things, I keep saying, keep telling people, a lot of a lot of people in our group they're brilliant artists. So I feel like if they just sit down and come up with their thing, and not all of them are like me, or you like to do random projects. I get it. Like you don't have like a set IP that you want to do, but
Yeah.
you know, I feel like if
It's
you guys come
definitely
up,
still some yeah, like I've been thinking more about it. Like I still don't want to do like a set IP, but I would like to do some more mature projects where it does have like
I
a
mean, if
more
you,
full
what I was
body of
gonna say
work
is like if
based
you
on
do
this.
like a theme of some sort, it doesn't have to be like a story like mine. It
Yeah,
doesn't
like
have to
just
be
like
like
something that can
a
be collected into a book or whatever, and then that's
yeah.
that. Let's say, oh, that's the thing. I'm gonna do something
I mean,
else
you
now.
did that piece with like there's like two cowboys, and then it looked like a Cthulhu type creature.
Yeah, it's part of the Western Lovecraft stuff.
People love that thing.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's
not sure you want to do like a bazillion drawings like that, but that could be a theme for you.
it's been something I've been uh, okay, we can actually talk about that. Like, so it's been something I've been toying with. I think I'm grappling with. I almost said struggling, but yeah, I guess it is struggling or grappling with it.
You
Where
said strapling, which I think is a good word.
strappling, yeah, it's exact.
Strapling.
It's like straddling the line of grapple and struggle. Um, Like, what it is like, I'm worried about because like, the main outlet I was using for that was gallery stuff, and I had
Right.
to worry about, like, how sellable that work is through gallery
Right.
stuff, which, like, that piece did sell. Um, so, like, good, but like out of the Western Lovecraft pieces, that's the only one that's sold so far. And so I had this whole talk with like my wife as well. I was like, I don't know how sellable this is in terms of like
I
gallery work.
Sure.
Like
I mean,
it's
here's the
work at
thing.
its
I feel
field.
like
It's like, does it
what
work as like a one-off gallery piece kind of thing, or does it need to get
I think you
a
need to
whole
take it more
sold
mainstream
first?
than gallery side, and
Hmm?
that's just going to be testing. I think you need to take it into a more mainstream place other than just galleries. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like if you tested that at Gen Con, it would move. But you got to show up with stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like minimum 8 pieces in that. Like, what if you did like a in my head when I saw that, and I thought to myself, what if you did like a Cthulhu throughout the time, like throughout the like eras, like there's that idea of the elder gods was always they exist forever, right?
Mhm.
So what if you had like a you have the Western, and then you have like a um like the
So like
industrial
that
era.
so that works, I think, like that specific theme, I think, works more as a gallery thing. Excuse me.
Sure,
Where
maybe.
especially if you no, no, totally. Like cuz then it's a theme that ties that can tie all the gallery pieces together. They all have something in common that kind
Oh,
of
you're saying
work.
if you gave it like a era theme. Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
What would you do then if you brought it to like say Gen Con or Dragon Con?
Gen
Like a
Con or
bigger
Dragon Con,
show.
I think it needs to be more what my original intent was, where it's set in Western, like it's a
Okay.
Western landscape kind of thing, and it's set around that, and it's like a narrative, a series of like narrative illustrations that kind of showcase like almost like in the same vein as like like the Mars Attacks trading cards where
Oh, dude, those would be
they
cool.
didn't tell right, but like the way they told like they didn't tell a sequential set of scenes. What it was is like each one was like a scene plucked out of like whatever this like B movie horror show was that the
Right.
Mars Attacks universe was, and like that's kind of how it was. Like I think that's like where I wanted to I think start it with, where it's like oh yeah, like these are just like scenes out of this like horrific like Western landscape that's being plagued by Cthulhu eldritch monsters kind of deal, and then from there work trying to figure out a story that kind of works within those constructs. And like I've written
That's
down notes and stuff here and there, but yeah, it's just
I think it would work. You
on
just gotta
yeah,
do it.
yeah, it's just setting
And you
aside
can do
time for
you've
it.
got you've also got like the ability to sculpt things. So like I feel like you could that would be like another product you throw in the mix, right? Like
Yeah.
here's this idol that keeps showing up in the stories. Here's this Cthulhu. Here's I don't know. I don't know what you would make, but I feel like that it won't fly as well at a Comic Con, but it would fly better at a indie type show, Gen Con, Dragon Con,
Yeah.
uh, maybe San Diego, even though it is a Comic Con, but mainly because San Diego likes seeing different
I was gonna
things,
say San Diego though is like I don't think it qualifies as like what we think is a Comic Con anymore.
right?
Like it's so big and so varied that
There's so many different things in that show. Like if you had a booth there with like this
especially
idea,
because like a lot of like movie and TV stuff goes on there as well. Like it's hard to say like that's in the same vein as like a MegaCon or
man,
like
yeah, I've never
C2E2.
done C2E2 is pure. It feels those shows feel like as close to being a Comic Con as you can get, right?
Exactly.
And that's why it's hard for
Exactly.
like I do C2E2 mainly because it's local. If it wasn't local, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I make decent money at it, but not enough. Like if I had to mix the hotel into that mix plus, dinners with
Then it
my
wouldn't be
friends,
worth
it
it.
wouldn't be worth it. But since I
Yeah.
come home to my own bed at the end of the night, sleep my own house, I can, and hang, everything I go to afterwards is local, or I just come
Yeah.
home.
And that was my logic with MegaCon for a while. And then I just eventually said like it's not like the last one I did of that, like I barely made my table and I was like, this isn't worth it anymore.
Right. Which is kind of the boat. Like I'm doing C2E2 again in 2024, but if I don't make the numbers I want, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
I will try to share a booth with someone if they offer it up, but my booth cost has gone from 1,500 for a booth. It used to be, I think it was 1,300 when I first started, then it was 1,500. Even then, I was fine. Then last year was 1,875, and they want 1,975 for for 2024.
Oh my
And
god.
they
And
wanted
for a
30%
10
or
foot?
40% for a 10 by 10 corner.
Right.
And they wanted, I think it was 30 or 40% upfront last week. And I was just like, but the show's not till April. So I had to pay it, right? And they told me I have to say I have this like really I have a really nice corner spot right before you walk in Artist Alley. Like you have to go past me to get an Artist Alley. So
Oh.
in theory it should be fine, but it's also a Comic Con. So people see my booth and they're just like it's the same thing that's happened to you at MegaCon. They're like, where's Batman? Where's Spider Man?
Yeah.
Where's the comic book things we want? And I don't even have a comic book, right? It's just I have
Yeah.
nothing that people want. So but in the same vein, like when I do Anime Central, which is also
You
here
say
in
you do
Chicago.
really well at that one.
Dude, I kill it there. I did it first, and I was like, it's an anime show. I don't know how I'm gonna do. And my first 2 years was I didn't do bad. Again, local show. And I just kept doing them, and then all of a sudden I'm hitting these high numbers. And initially I thought it was just with the playmats, but this last one we did in the summer, I moved metal and prints, and I
Mm.
was just like,
So, like,
okay.
do you think I'm kind of curious, like with the anime convention, do you think you're picking up long-term collectors
I think I'm
from
picking
it?
up long term collectors and I'm picking up people who are like, I saw this artist that I really liked, or they have the stuff at their house, and the friends saw it, and they come and get it from me. Because
Mm.
and I it's a little bit like, and I
But
think the anime
so,
community
so
has a lot of money to spend.
oh, true. Yeah.
So and it's not like a $40 print.
Not that much. Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not
that
not
much if you see a piece of art you like, right?
yeah.
Um, We sell a couple of those all day, and I do the 2 for 60. So almost every one of them will be like, "I'll take a second print for $20 more."
Yeah.
But it's weird because I used to think that same thing isn't happening at C2E2, but then I realized the people that come to Anime Central, a few of them are coming to C2E2 because they like going to the shows in Chicago, but the majority of them are like, "Well, there's nothing anime." There's some anime stuff at C2E2, but it's mainly geared towards comics.
They could get more of it at this show, so it'd be better to
Yeah,
spend their money there instead of like at
right.
C2E2 where it's
And
like,
it's a much Anime
I don't
Central is a
know.
much smaller show too, right? It's at Rosemont and it's in a smaller building. C2E2 is
Oh, okay.
huge.
Right, right.
So I think part of the numbers being higher is the fact that there's only like if you look on the
So,
exhibitor side, I think there's only like 100 exhibitors in there.
so they may even feel like, oh, because it's a smaller convention, I can get more personal time with the artists and stuff as well, or whatever.
Maybe. I mean, people hang out and talk to me all day, even at C2E2, but sometimes I'm just like I want to catch up with everybody, but I'm also like I got to make sales here, man. And
Right, right.
I'm literally spending 2 grand for a booth right now. So it's like my goal day one is make that 2 grand back because then I'm in
Yeah,
profit after that.
yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, no, yeah, there's some stuff I'd like to do. I would like to set some time aside for some more Western Lovecraft stuff, and also workshop a catchier name.
I mean, you'll come up with a
I-
name eventually. It's just I want you to
yeah,
like do the thing, man, because I feel like you and a couple other friends of mine in our little tight little circle of friends. You guys are like you have a day job though, so like at least there's something happening here, right? You're not just tinkering along. Um,
yeah, yeah. Well,
the
that
rest of
was the
them are
thing. Like
doing
my
like a lot of freelance. I'm like, bro, work on your own thing. Stop taking because they're like they need the work to keep. A lot of them don't. So like a couple of them don't really need the work. Like because I've talked to them about like why are you taking the job so cheap? Like, do you need the
yeah.
money that bad? And they're like, no. I was like, well, what are you doing?
Then first off, yeah, don't ever take a job cheap just because you can take it cheap. Like,
Right.
always ask your worth.
Unless you need it, right? I'm not telling you not to take the like if you got rent to pay or you need to buy food and stuff.
Honestly, I would even go so far as to say, like, look, if it is really cheap, don't take that money and go work at like a if you can, if you go work at like a Starbucks or a
Yeah.
Barnes and
I
Noble
mean, at
or
least you'll get
something.
insurance, right?
Yeah, or at least the work lease, the pay will be steadier kind of deal than I get it. I get it. I do
Dude, I
get
mean,
it.
I get it. I've been
I
there.
understand.
I used to work two different bars as a bar back and then the comic book store. And
Yeah.
initially, the problem is I was going to quit the comic book store because I was like, I'm spending the money I'm making here. So I worked a new deal with them where I would get some comics for as part of my payment too. That way, I wasn't spending my paycheck on the
Right.
comics. And as soon as I paid down a lot of my bills, I was able to quit some of those jobs and get better work. But
Yeah.
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I'd also say with like some of those jobs, like if you want to do freelance and really make it work, I would say like quit try like this almost sounds like like giving up or whatever, but
Yeah,
I don't see it that way. But like quit trying to get into the same industries that everyone else is getting into.
yeah. It seems to be
Like
Watsy for some reason lately.
and I get it's literally like a prestige thing. Like it's just like, oh, like I get into WotC and like everyone gets into WotC kind of deal. It's like, no, don't everyone's trying to do that. Just don't fucking do that. Become like either honestly, like become like a graphic designer or something like some other art thing that isn't that kind of like demand of so many people trying to squeeze through the door at once.
I mean, I feel like in our
Es-
industry right now, jobs are
Especially in
so
a
tight.
very yeah, and especially in a very the other thing, especially in a very niche portion of the industry that doesn't pay that great. Like, don't try and force your way in. It's so much like this. An adjacent way, an adjacent way to think about this is like game design,
Hmm.
where you'll at least for me, like I've run into like several engineers, software engineers that wanted to get into game design, got into game design, and the pay's not that great compared to other software engineer
Right,
positions elsewhere. Like the pay's not that great. The working hours are the work life balance is not that great. Uh, and and at least now, currently, like a lot of the companies are fucking going tits up or reducing themselves because they overextended because of the pandemic and thought that kind of gravy train was going to last forever. And then
right,
now they've realized, like, oh no, we overspent. And it's like, well, you guys, you fucking people thought it was going to be like the money was going to be like this forever. What are
right.
you thinking? But like, I've heard those, I've talked to those people and like, there's a few that still are in game design, but the ones that have gotten out, they're still doing like software engineering, but now it's like on another portion of tech, and it tends to be like the pay is much higher.
Oh yeah,
The
for
work
sure.
the work life balance is much easier. You're not running into like oh constant crunch or whatever because like game industry is like toxic in that way where it doesn't understand like normal work life balance.
Right.
Whereas like most software
Well,
companies kind of establish that to some extent.
most of like the some companies aren't bad. Like I was talking to a friend that works who owns them? Who owns Bungie? It's just Bungie. It's just
No,
Bungie.
Sony owns them.
Sony owns them now. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way,
They were independent for after they spun
they
off
were with
from
Activision
Microsoft.
for a while.
Yeah, sorry, Activision. They were at
Yeah.
Activision for a while. They spun off and became independent for like a short minute, and then Sony bought them.
Okay.
But now even Bungie apparently lately, like morale there is allegedly like pretty low because
Even
Sony more
with
or less.
like Sony just took over then.
Well, no. So here's the thing. So Sony has given them pretty much independence, but Sony also is really disappointed in the Destiny 2
Yeah.
sales that have been going
Sure.
on with Bungie.
Right.
And so Sony pretty much told them like, "Listen, y'all got to get your act together or we are taking over the ship entirely."
Which would
Cuz like
suck.
which would suck and like likely like Bungie would just cease being Bungie. They would just become like Sony Entertainment. I don't where are they located? Seattle?
Seattle.
It'd be like Sony Entertainment Seattle or what, like so
Right.
whatever branch they would call it that or
See,
something.
that's like so. Like my friend was saying, how like they get you work X amount of time, and then they Bungie like I don't know if they force you to or they tell you to, but basically you get to take a break. It's basically you get like 3 months off or something. I forget what the timestamp was, but it's basically like you've been working for 6 months straight. 3 months off, don't work, bye, see ya. And I'm like, I feel like most companies should do stuff like that because
Yeah,
people,
like
especially
a
coders,
mhm,
I mean,
like a
employees burn
sabbatical.
out, period, right? Like, there's actually a guy, when you said game design, I was reminded of, there's this dude I found on YouTube whose name I can't remember. Um, I've posted about him a couple times in our private Discord. Um, but basically, he used to be a game dev for Blizzard. His dad is one of the big dudes there who did all the video visual designs and stuff for, like, when you see like the trailers and all that stuff. They actually
Okay,
spoofed his dad in like a South Park episode or something. Like, he's a pretty famous dude. His son, who does his YouTube channel, is super smart, and he talks about crunch. He talks about how they work you hard. He talks about how the pay is very low, and he basically quit Blizzard, and he went literally 4 blocks up the street to, I want to say it was like Amazon Games or something, and they make whatever games they make for
mhm.
Kindle Fires and all that. He said the pay is better, the work life balance is better, like, it's
Yeah.
just night and day. And I'm just like, yeah, because some companies understand that if you work your employees too hard, they're going to fizzle out on you, and then you get nothing done,
That and, like, also okay,
or a shitty
when
product.
well, I was gonna say, like, when we're in college or, like, when we're coming up into trying to get ourselves into the field, what do you wanna work for? Do you wanna work for Blizzard? Because you know what Blizzard does, or do you wanna work for Amazon Games?
Right.
No one is ever gonna say Amazon Games. So I feel like a company like that can't they can't be abusive, or at least they can't be abusive to the same extent as someone like Activision Blizzard because, again, they don't have all those people knocking down the door. Someone like Activision Blizzard or even like WotC or even like anyone within the board game industry, they I feel like they can get away with that shit because they know that they're a hot commodity and
Yes.
people want to be with them.
It's the
It's
same
like,
thing with these
no.
other companies that these artists, our group of friends, want to work for. And I'll keep saying
Yeah.
WotC because everyone's like, I'm in the same boat, right? I used to be, I want to work for Magic. I want to do a Magic card.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they could have essentially been like,
I think
here's a
I think
hundred
we all
bucks.
have been there for like a hot minute at least.
Yes, and you would have probably done it if they had caught us, even like 5 or 6 years ago. It would have been like, yeah, I'll do that job for $100. But now you're like, I'm good. You gotta
Yeah.
give me a little more money. Like, you gotta incentivize me. Why should I do it? And yes, people would probably go to Bungie. I would love to work for Bungie. Like, it'd be awesome because I like Bungie. Amazon would be the farthest off from my head, even though they probably
Yeah.
would pay better. So
Yeah.
yes, that is a good way of thinking about it. And unfortunately, I wish more people would think about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like yeah, when I've seen people like just yeah, freaking out about job cuts or especially layoffs within the like animation and everything. It's like, well, yeah, no, it fucking sucks, but there are other places. It's
Sure.
harder to find those places. Yeah. You kind of have to like it's almost like you have to kind of like just lurk on other people's profiles and find out where they work and then
I mean, or you
like
hope
kind
you
of
have a
work
friend
towards
that
that
can get
person.
your foot in the door somewhere.
That too, like that does help.
Dude, I have a
Um,
friend right now who works. He's been on the show. I'll tell you. I'll talk to you about him later. I can't name him personally. I shouldn't. But he does a lot of animation stuff, and apparently he's in LA. He got let go, and then he did. I think he said he did like 70 interviews or something, and
oh,
nobody wants to hire. And I'm like, I was shocked to hear there's that many companies out there. Um,
oh yeah, there's ton. There's a ton.
so, like, he did all these
Which
interviews and he hasn't heard back. And I think it comes down to how much he wants to get paid.
there's that, and then also at least with, like animation in LA right now is it's a clusterfuck. It's like the same thing as like with the game industry recently with like layoffs and stuff. It's like everyone is letting everybody go for some ungodly reason.
Money.
Which also it's another yeah, it's money, but yeah, that's another pressure where it's like now all of a sudden like it's not just the usual churn, but now you have like all these extra people in it that are also trying to get the same things.
I mean, the thing with Watsi and Hasbro is like, what they sold to Hasbro, and then you have a bunch of people. It's the same. It's the thing with like the OGL. That's a good example. This corporate greed, money coming to play. Hasbro people are the ones who are like, let's start charging for the OGL. WotC
Yeah.
hasn't charged for that shit in like 20 years, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Hasbro wanted to charge for it, and then people are like, fuck you.
Well, that was the thing. Like, I read earlier today, like I guess the CEO, Chris Cox, which is apt name for the
That's an
for a dick.
unfortunate last name.
Yeah, considering how much of a dick he is.
Yeah.
But no, I saw him mention that, like, he was like, yeah, this is a tough decision, and we we had to, like, this is our emergency pullout to keep the company healthy. And it's like, well, is it though? Because you
Is
made
it though?
9 million. Exactly. It's like you made 9 million this year. It even says in the article that you made 9 million to date this year.
He made 9 million.
Yes.
Right.
His not the company. His compensation
paycheck.
is
Yeah,
9
his
million.
compensation was 9 million. Exactly.
And it's like,
It's like
okay, you mean to tell me that you guys didn't try and cut, like, your own salaries first or anything? I distinctly
exactly.
remember, flip coin of it, Satoru Iwata, the ex-head of Nintendo, he died, unfortunately. He passed away, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
But around the time of, oh, which one was it? It wasn't the DS. It wasn't the Wii. Trying to remember. I'm trying to remember which one it was around. If it was like GameCube era, or the short answer, the short of it is, like, one of there was a lull where one of the game consoles wasn't selling well. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't meeting expectations, kind of deal. And his response was, "Oh, well, it's on me, so I'm going to take the pay cut, so I don't have to fire anybody."
Yeah.
And I'll take the pay because I can afford to take a pay cut, and I can write it out while we try to figure this out. And,
That's an
like, yeah,
honorable
like,
thing, right? No one's gonna do
it's
that
a
here.
supremely honorable thing from someone like Iwata. Yeah,
Right. The U.S. CEOs are just greedy fucks.
yeah.
I mean, when you hear about CEOs making 160 million a year and then not wanting to pay the writers, you're just
It's like,
like
really?
literally,
Come on.
if one CEO in the batch of CEOs said, "I'll take the pay cut," you can take 100 and whatever 150 million away. I'll take just
Yeah,
10. They could easily have paid all the writers who work with all the companies.
yeah,
What like they could just pay all the writers and all across the board, and then everyone would have been like, "Cool, we're good to go. We're back to work. We go." But I don't
yeah.
understand that mentality at all.
I don't either, but yeah. So this is like the long way of saying, like, look, I get you want to work on the thing or on the project or something, but if they're not paying enough,
Right.
it's like,
So
fuck it, just go off, do something else, do your own thing or something, or
dude, I
something
keep
else.
telling people, do your own thing. It's like people like independent like artists. People like new like who else is gonna show up with like new stuff other than a different artist? Like otherwise you're seeing the same cookie cutter stuff over and over. That's what
Yeah.
people pay you to do. Like does a Cthulhu style western exist somewhere? Maybe. Have I seen it?
Uh,
Just from you so far.
yeah, I don't think there's been a few there's been a few stuff that's kind of dabbled in it, kind of
I
deal.
mean,
Like, not like in the way that I've been exploring it, but oh shit, what's that one game? Like Weird West
yes.
it wasn't like
They can
directly
only do
Cthulhu,
so
but
much because yes.
yeah, but it was like weird supernatural things in a Wild West setting. I was like, and
I think it's
also
cool.
a really good name, which I was like really bad once I found it. I was like, fuck, like that's a actually I wanted to use that.
Weird West. Yeah, you get that cool
Yeah.
WW logo design down.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, kudos to them for snagging it first. It worked out for them. And it's
I
a
mean,
good
you can
game
come up with
apparently.
something. You can come up. I mean, the
Yeah,
thing
no,
is, the
it's just a
Lovecraft
matter of, like,
license is just
figuring
open.
out. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it's just a matter of figuring out what's snappy kind of deal. It'll come to me eventually. But yeah, it's also it's a there's a whole thing like my wife and I were talking about where it's like we we both joked like we really don't want gifts this year. We just want like time cards. Can you give us like instead of like gift cards, can you just give us time cards that give us like I could redeem it for like an extra hour or something or like
Well, it's just
an
like when
extra
they,
few days?
it's like when they asked me when my birthday was coming. Like, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, I just want to be left alone. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
just
fair.
want like 3 hours to sit on the couch and read comics and play games. Like, read a book, maybe take a nap in that somewhere. But I don't want anyone asking me questions. I just don't want to be bothered. Like, and like we tend to be up late working and stuff. And like, I was talking to Nancy's cousins the other day about a show, and Nancy was like, "Where do you find the time?" I'm like, "I literally will stay up an extra hour till
Yeah.
because where am I going to find the time? I can't do it during the day because then my
No, you can't.
oldest is like, "What are you watching? What's going on?" You know, can't read during the day because again, there's 20 questions being played in my ear.
Mhm.
So I have to do it like when I'm done with this. I'll work a little bit, and at some point that'll slow down, and I'll be like, then I have to make a decision, right? Do I want to watch a show, read a book, go to sleep?
Yeah.
You know, time, yeah, time card would be great. Take these kids away from me for an hour.
Time card would be amazing. Then I could figure out what to do with the Lovecraft
You
West.
just gotta start ideating, man.
Yeah. No, it's just yeah, I gotta figure out a better time management system.
Well,
Because
what you need is,
there's
do you have a
the Western
whiteboard?
Lovecraft. Actually, I don't. I have a cork board.
Well,
I
like
was
even
actually
if you have
looking.
like
I
the
was actually
post-it
looking
notes,
at a
right?
whiteboard. Yeah,
If you get a whiteboard, because then you write down, you start writing down the ideas over and over, and you're forced to stare at that thing every time you walk into that room,
yeah.
and then you're gonna be like,
That was
huh,
the thing that I always. Yeah, I got a cork board for that reason, but I don't know if it's. I'm assuming it's because like I have a day job, so I'm not like I'm not in here a whole
right?
lot.
But
It's only
you'll
like a
be in there
few
at
hours.
some point.
Yeah, I guess like that's the thing. Like, yeah,
You don't want to
good
put it in your
point.
office at work because someone's gonna steal your idea.
No, no, but like that's also why like iPad has an app that comes with it called Freeform,
Yeah,
which is basically like a infinite canvas whiteboard kind of thing. So I've been using that to jot down notes and stuff
sure.
because I have that with me at all times, so I can always jot down a note or something. When I'm in here, uh, I don't have. I tend when I come into here, like I'm already in work mode. I'm not in play mode, so it's
Right.
hard for me to ideate right then because I already like, yeah, I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna get this done,
Sure.
and I just kind of go through.
I
Yeah, no,
write
it's
everything down in I have like all these little notebooks, and
hmm.
I quickly write everything down in them. And because these post-its were getting out of control.
It's getting
The ones
littered.
that are here right now for book three, I'm leaving alone because they'll go away once I start finishing book three. But I don't want to keep using post-its on the wall. I don't even want to write it in these notebooks. What I want to do is just ideate these things and make them a thing.
Right.
Um, so I think once you have that aha moment, you're just gonna you'll get there. It's just
Yeah.
you have other interests too. It's not just Lovecraft. So,
Yeah, yeah.
ooh,
Like
what about like
also like
Lovecraftian dinosaurs?
Lovecraftian dinosaurs. There's a few that do look like that in some way
We can
or
just
another.
trademark that right now so nobody takes it.
Lovecraftian dinosaurs.
Done. It's ours. You can actually have it.
Eldritch prehistoria kind of
Yeah.
thing.
See, it would be
There's
like
a
Dino
there's a lot
Riders.
of I was gonna say there's a lot of Precambrian life forms that look pretty eldritch, like nautiluses and stuff that like have crazy ass shells and everything. You're like,
S-
what the hell happened here?
Speaking of dinosaurs, you saw the trailer for the new Jurassic Park?
The Survive game?
That looks good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Well, I
don't
was
know if I feel like it would give me a lot of anxiety trying to be a person surviving on the island.
I'm excited for it. So I think I mentioned it in our chat
And yeah,
at some point. But yeah, there's a game back in the 90s called Trespasser. Have you ever played that or ever seen it?
mm-mm.
Uh I think the two main takeaways now that people when they see it,
Trespass.
it's like it's like buggy as fuck.
Let me look it up.
Uh, and then B, I remember your health was a tattooed heart on like so the character you're playing is a woman, and your health is like a tattoo on your breast. So when you look down at your chest, like you see your tattoo health, and that tells you like how
Oh,
much health
okay.
you have left. I just like remember that, and be like, wow, that's a choice.
This game
That
looks rough, man.
it plays rough. It's definitely like
Oh, you're trying to survive an island full of dinosaurs.
mhm.
Interesting.
It's exactly the game that was just announced as a trailer. But the thing is like they did this back in the 90s. They tried to make it happen back in the 90s, but there's a whole litany of things. There's a documentary actually I have to share with you about like what went wrong
Yeah.
with this.
Players control
Because
Annie, and a sole survivor of a plane crash that leaves her stranded on a remote island with genetically engineered dinosaurs.
and this thing had if I remember, this had physics engine before Half-Life 2 kind of figured it out and got the
Hmm.
like Half-Life 2 is known for like having like the PhysX engine, which is like, yeah, or the source physics engine, which like, yeah, we figured out how to do physics in games. And it
Right.
just worked within Half-Life 2. This is before Half-Life 2.
It
And
looks it looks
yeah,
like Turok. Do you remember that?
kinda. But yeah, there's like a lot of like physics problems in it, like stuff where like one of its main pitfalls was like everything was physics controlled. Uh the guns, the bullets within it, the dinosaur movements, everything was physics controlled. It wasn't a good physics engine though, so there's a lot of
Oh
like bugs with it
God.
and stuff like.
Right.
And if I remember, the dinosaurs were supposed to have the original pitch was like the dinosaurs are supposed to have like a fully immersive reactive AI where they wouldn't just be like hunting you. They would be out doing their own thing. If they happen to come across you, they'd be like, "Oh, who are you? I'm gonna
Right.
stalk you for a little bit." But otherwise, they can be like, "Oh, I'm gonna try and attack another dinosaur or something, or I'm gonna
Hmm.
hunt it or something." None of that came to fruition like that. They ran into like multitude of. It was running into like I remember. I think one of the issues was like they never calibrated correctly, so the dinosaurs were in this constant state of like literally like this like their emotional needs was like going like this like a rictograph where
Interesting.
well, like a Richter scale kind of thing where um 1 second they would be thirsty, then be sleepy, then hunting, then like just constantly bouncing around. So you'd end up with these dinosaurs in this like herky jerky pattern where they were paralyzed with like choice. They didn't know what to do because
Hmm.
they were being fed too many commands at once. And then eventually the developers just said, okay, we're just gonna strip that out, make them hunt you, only you
Period.
from
Yeah.
now on.
That's
Yeah.
like do you remember a program called I was trained in a program called Director, which they don't use anymore. They use it a lot in movies. It used to be a Macromedia product. Adobe bought it,
Mhm.
shut it down. But your story reminds me of the last. I believe the last movie that used Director was Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, and they used it
Okay.
in the scene to code the scene where the Helm's Deep battle, and they had coded the orcs or the Urukai to there's the humans and then orcs. Or I keep saying orcs, but I think it's Urukai in that scene. The computer is programmed to keep them fighting, and at some point, it was designed to say, "Hey, the Rohan shows up, and it's designed to have the bad guys essentially turn and run. Like if they can't win,
Mhm.
run." But the program kept just fighting, and then they had to like it just kept swarming each other, and so like no side was actually winning that battle, so they had to reprogram the whole thing to be like X percentage of these guys will turn tail and run at some point.
Oh,
And
right, right.
and it was like a whole thing, and I was like, I feel like, but initially they didn't program what the fight would happen. They literally programmed them to fight and just let them fight, and then the director would film it, and then they would put CGI over all of it. So like they
Mhm.
never animated because they're not animating each character to fight. They're letting the
No,
computer
no, it's
decide.
like a yeah physics thing.
Yeah, it's literally like this
Almost.
side is going to be more balanced to win. This side is not. But the Urukai just never let. They were relentless. Like they wouldn't let up. Apparently.
It's just as they probably would be.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I was just like, that's interesting. And I don't know what else. And Macromedia Director doesn't exist anymore, but they had its own language called Macromedia Lingo, essentially, or Director Lingo. That's what I learned. And in my head, I was like, I'm gonna work for movies. I'm gonna work for movies like Lord of the Rings. Nope. Thanks, Adobe.
Yeah.
You fucks. Still messing with me since
Yeah,
college.
I had a whole thing about that at work today too with Adobe.
Yeah.
Just yeah, just usual ranting of it.
It just
It's
annoys me that
nothing
all
new.
these years they're not gonna fix the glitches because they're like people are gonna use our product regardless.
Well, so that was one of the things I was talking about where it's like the programs, especially like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator, those are built on like program platforms that are as old as you and me.
Hmm. Dude, I
Like,
started on Adobe 3.1, I think.
yeah, and Adobe, whatever the fuck this is, Adobe 2024, whatever the version it is itself, is still built on those exact same bones. And
Yep.
really, I think to like to get out a lot of the bugs that it's going with, it would have to basically be built from the ground up
Yeah.
again. Don't have to
Which they're
call it
not
like a
gonna
new
do.
program. No, they're not going to do because it's the amount of R&D for that. Uh, they don't want to throw that money at it. They would rather just collect it and be like, oh yeah, we're
Right.
just adding like some new features into this, like
Meanwhile, they're
a new
you know
puppet warp thing, and then it's like, oh okay, and now it's like, what the fuck? Well, I don't need this.
I don't use any of that. I mean, their competition, essentially like Affinity, is getting pretty close to being.
Yeah.
I bought some Photoshop files in Affinity last week, and like it's almost there, man. Um, Not 100% Photoshop, but it's getting there.
Yeah, that was
And
like one of the
I'd
things I
like to
was
move
also
to
talking about
Affinity.
today. That was one of the other things I was talking about today, where it's like going into Affinity is like similar to like Spanglish, where some of it is like really foreign, and then
Sure.
occasionally you would recognize a word and be like, "Wait, I know what that is."
Right.
And it's like in a sea of like foreign stuff, like foreign words and everything.
Yeah, that
So,
one.
like Affinity, you open it up and you're like, okay, some of this I kind of recognize. Some of these hotkeys kind of work exactly as I remember in Photoshop, and then it's like, oh, some of these don't.
Right.
And you could take the time to like remap that and stuff, but then it's like
Eh,
it comes back to time, just being like, okay, I have to sit down, I have to learn this whole new thing
right.
again and everything.
That's the problem I have. Like, if I can just figure out Affinity, I can dump Photoshop, but I know Photoshop at the back of my hand. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's hard to be like, I don't want to relearn a new program right now. We're about 52 minutes in.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
you want
looking at it
to?
right.
We could call early if you want
Yeah,
too.
and well, I was gonna say I have my cool thing to talk about.
Yeah. What do you
Um,
got?
so when I was at PAX, I was talking to some friends about the RPG stuff I'm working on for Ancient Ones,
Hmm.
and right now it's built in the 5e system. But then there's a guy named Louis who he's one of the owners for Exalted Funeral. So he told me about this system they have called Old School Essentials,
Oh, those are
and
beautiful books.
yeah, so this is the character design. Oh, let me hold it up here. These are the characters. So it looks like
Okay.
old
Oh,
school D and D essentially.
yeah.
There's magic.
Oh, I love these.
Um, this is advent. These are adventures.
Are these licensed illustrations or are they illustrations made specifically for this?
I don't know honestly. I
Like are
feel
these
like
older illustrations?
there's an art director that works with them. I think he did all these. He draws the stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because like
That's this
they
one is
do evoke
monsters.
like yeah, because like they do have that like old school D&D feel. And I
Right.
was wondering
So
if like totally new pieces or if they're pieces that they found from that era.
I don't know if they're. I know for a fact he drew this one because this is on one of their banners. Um, but
Okay.
if you read so like I was trying to figure out how do I explain this as a rules as a system, right? And basically it says I'll just read the um. Let me see, where is it? Here about this game. This is what is Old School Essentials, a role-playing game of fantastic adventure where players work together to overcome fearsome monsters, sinister plots, and deadly traps in search of wealth, power, and glory. Which, at the end of the day, this is originally supposed to be like D&D first edition. But with what I was told is it's more like what fifth edition should have been before they watered it down. But this
Gotcha.
is a rules light system, an old school role playing game styled after the beloved games of the 70s and 80s, a relatively rules light game where the rules are kept simple in order to let the imagination, fast paced action take a spotlight, a streamlined rule set with the books carefully structured for maximum usability, a modular game that can be easily expanded for play in many different fantastic genres and game worlds. So basically, pitch me on writing another version of Ancient Ones with the rules light system, and that way you can sell it faster. Because he's 5e, everyone knows, but he's like these old school essentials is new and it's getting more popular, and he's like you'll probably move more of this product, maybe, I don't know, but this is the 5-book core set, and they have these 2 fat books you can get that have all these in 2 books or 1 book.
I
But
love the look of those.
yeah, but he
Those
told me
are
to buy it
so
this
nice.
way because if you and I are playing and you're like, I need to see the magic book, I can
You
hand you
just
the
get
magic
it like that. Yeah,
versus
I
the
think
whole
that makes
book that
more.
everyone needs.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense than the fat book,
I mean, it comes in this like awesome here.
like
You'll
case.
like the case. It actually comes in this cool case,
Oh my gosh! Oh, that is wonderful.
right? I'll get you one if
Sorry.
you want
So
next time at a show.
what
Old
is the
School
company's
Essentials.
name? Old School Essentials is the company name,
No, Old
or
School Essentials is the system. It's made by Exalted Funeral.
Exalted Funeral? Okay.
Exalted Funeral is the one that I think publishes it, but I think the company, there's another one in the back here, is Necrotic Gnome. Necrotic Gnome might be the one that makes these books. Yeah, because Necrotic Gnome is on their website's on the side here. But Exalted Funeral is the one who's their publisher. Exalted Funeral essentially has what to me look like they have a lot of rules light systems. So like this is this one. They have Morkborg as well, which is I met the people who made Morkborg. They're these 2 Swedish guys.
Hmm.
They were at PAX while I'm at. I'll just show that too. This is Morkborg. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and
you've
Exalted
talked about
Funeral
more
carries this
before.
too. Yeah, that's that. You remember I had Brian on Vast Grim?
Hmm.
It's built on this. This is the
Same
basic
system.
shell. Yeah. Again, these are rules. This is more horror themed. But these are rules
And I
light
love the
systems.
illustration on that too. That's great.
Oh man, you haven't seen the inside of this thing. I'll show this off too. I'll just show 2 things today. But it's got all these cool like old school. You can't see this text. Oh yeah, there's a lot of text here, but it's got old school like I'm trying to
Yeah,
find a
like foil.
crazy
Wow,
page.
foil print. That's amazing.
You know, different colors, um, wild illustrations.
All right. Yeah, I'm digging that.
Yeah, I'm digging all, and I like the idea. Like, look at this thing,
Oh, that's great.
and I like the idea of rules light. I'm just trying to figure out if that's, the main reason. One of the main reasons I designed AO stuff in 5e was because 5e is one of the most popular rule sets out there.
Hmm.
So in my head, I was like, it'll sell, So why would I deviate away from that? But also, I guess we'll see.
But I guess if it's a rules light thing, then presumably it's quicker to pick up. So
Correct.
it's not.
The
You're
idea is
not.
like you and I could sit
You
down.
you may
Like
not know 5e, sure, but you can take like 20 minutes or however long it takes to teach that, and then you're golden.
right, you don't have to go through like think about when we play D&D. Sometimes we get caught up in like reading the player's sheet and being like,
Hmm.
what spells can I cast? Can I do this? What dice do I need to do? Luckily, D&D Beyond does a lot of that heavy lifting for us. But
Right.
if you didn't have D&D Beyond and you had to sort it out yourself, it would take a minute. Excuse me. The idea behind
It
this
would.
is you don't have as many dice. Choices can be made faster because you just want to get to the fun, get to the game, get to the thing.
Hmm.
So I'm reading up on it. I'm sold on. I like the system itself. It's just when I talk to these guys at the show, one idea that was presented to me was when I launched the Kickstarter, do a 5e version, and then it's actually very easy to convert 5e into OSE, according to Louis. So if it is as simple as it sounds, I might do a OSE version and then Kickstarter it with both, and then whichever one seems to be more popular. Like if 5e doesn't sell as well, I will sell the 5e versions from the Kickstarter and then say this is the only way you can get it in 5e right now. Or some I don't know. I
Gotcha.
gotta like really sit down and think about what I want to do. So also if I
Yeah.
do an OSE, there's a higher probability I can get Exalted Funeral to carry the product for me.
Mm.
So then I
Okay.
don't even have to
Yeah,
worry about
cool.
it, right?
Yeah.
I can also just make another game in my world in that I have
Yeah,
like
you could.
I have the idea for the kids book. I don't know if any of the kids stuff will fit in this world. For the kids book, I was looking at there's I met this guy named DM Dave, and he's got a game set. He's got a rule set for a series called Badge Quest. You might have seen it on Kickstarter. It's like Girl Scouts,
Yeah, I think I have
hunting
seen that.
monsters and such, essentially. Um, so I might use that for the kids book. I don't know, or the Root rule set, but I don't think that's open license. So
Mm.
I got ideas. We'll see.
Yeah, that's neat. That's awesome.
It's
I love
cool.
that. These actually, I've had these sitting around in my studio for a minute, but they finally gotten flat enough that I can actually share them. So I met. There are a few artists that I met when I went to Philly earlier this year. One of them, his name is Paul Romano,
That
and
name sounds familiar.
he's an album artist, mainly for heavy metal bands and stuff. One of his clients is Mastodon.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and he sent me some posters
Oh,
he did for
damn.
Mastodon. Yeah, it's a big. I have no idea where I'm going to hang these, but they're very nice posters. So I'm
I
like,
mean, you
oh,
gotta frame those up and hang them somewhere.
yeah. They definitely need frames because like they're really nice screen prints and they're really heavy
Oh, that's
stock. And
cool.
like he
Yeah.
he even did like a. This is not going to show up at all in the thing, but there's like an emboss right there of
Yeah.
his thing. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, this one I love a lot. This other
Ooh, that's
Mastodon,
cool, man.
right?
That's cool.
Yeah. Now he sent me a few of those. Then he sent me a calendar that he made as well. That's like a collection of a bunch of his work. Um, yeah, no, it's they've been sitting on top of my printer, just slowly getting flatter,
Yeah,
letting
yeah.
just gravity do its work. And yeah, it's like I'm looking around. I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going to hang these because they're full size posters. I'm like, oh
Right.
no, where am I
Yeah.
going to put these things? Because I love to look at them.
You hang them right on in front of the shades there.
That's the thing. I mean, the studio has really terrible wall space. Like I really only have one wall, which is like on
Right.
in front of me.
Well, it's like essentially a sunroom you converted, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So like these are all windows, and then I have a
Right.
window on this side too that connects to our bedroom. And I actually have a poster up on there. It's oh wow, his Jacob Walker's Cthulhu
Oh, Cthulhu
poster.
piece, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I had that poster up on there, and
I
it's
think he
like the
sold
big
the
size.
original of that at Dragon Con this year.
Oh, good for him. Yeah,
I
because
think
I
he
remember
did.
him. Yeah, I remember him trying to sell that during the Kickstarter. I couldn't remember if it went or not. But yeah,
No,
good.
I
Yeah,
believe I
so
saw somebody walking by with that thing at Dragon Con. I was like, damn, he sold it.
yeah. Well, it's a great piece. But yeah, I got the 20 by 30 one.
I
So
have it too. I just never unrolled it. Kept it in the
probably
tube.
probably for the best because yeah, I mean it's a good size, but definitely like I look at them like oh Jesus Christ, like now I have like two more that are roughly that size. I'm like, where am I gonna put these?
You've got a problem, sir.
Yeah. And
Oh, that's what's up.
I don't want to inundate the entire house with like all my random posters and artwork and stuff, but it's
Sure.
slowly becoming that. Like our dining room, we have my wife picked up three prints from Vaughn one year. I
Yeah.
want to say like is that
It has
Spectrum?
to be Spectrum.
That must have been
It
Spectrum
was
when
a
she picked it
Spectrum.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like she has so we have like in our dining room we have like three prints of Vaughn that are in there, and I think they complement that area really nice. We have like a print of
It's cool.
Johan Losel's one of his paintings, and we have
Hmm.
that in our living room. I have like a Paul Bonner like right here.
Oh
Um,
man, I met
I
him at that
I have a
Spectrum
bunch of
too.
like yes, yeah. It's like I was really excited to meet him there.
Corey
Yeah, and then
Godby is the one that walked me over and introduced us.
oh really?
That's the first time I really hung out with Corey. Corey, I never thought would be friends with me. I just thought Corey was so cool that he never really hangs out with new artists. But he was like, I was at the bar after the awards ceremony. I was actually talking to Bill Sienkiewicz which is awesome,
Oh, okay,
you
yeah.
know. And then Corey walked over and said, "Hey, when you're done with that conversation, come meet me on the couch over here." And I was just like, "Okay." And when I sat down, he brought Paul Bonner over, and he's like, "This Paul Bonner is like an old school. He reminds me of Old Man Logan."
Yeah, yeah.
And I was just like, "Holy crap!" And I was like, "Oh my god, you're." And he said, "Stop." He's like, "I know who I am. I don't want to talk about it." I was just like, "All right." Like he did not want me raving about him at all. He's like, "I don't want to hear about who I am.
He
I don't want to
probably
hear."
gets he
Yeah,
probably
he
gets
was
that a
just
lot.
like, he's like, "Grab a drink. Let's have a good time." I'm like, "Fine by me, man." Yeah, he's a cool dude. He actually reminds me a little bit. He looks a little bit like a young Charles Bukowski. If you know what
Okay,
Charles
yeah.
Bukowski looks like
Yeah, yeah. I can see
before
that.
he went crazy. But that's cool that you have like my originals are all this stuff here. I still have a flat file full of originals too, but I'm this. My problem is this wall in front of me is going to be for shelves, so I cannot fill it with art.
You can't fill it with art, yeah,
And
because
this
then
wall
you're like,
is like essentially, if I can barely show you, it's almost full. See, there's some space there, and then
yeah. I gotta
this is
get
very
more.
dull. There's some space here.
I gotta get a little more like I call that like a Victorian wall where it's just like it's just like art every which way.
Yeah,
I have to do that
yeah,
within
that's
our living
basically what I've
room.
done here. Like it's just like however I want to hang it, I hang it.
Yeah.
I don't have any of
Ye-
your. I have your Cthulhu over here on a shelf. So
Mm. Yeah, I don't think you've gotten a print or anything from me. Come to think of
no,
it now.
I would need to at some point buy an original because
Oh yeah.
that's all originals. I think I do have a print from you in the flat file. I picked it up from you at LuxCon. It's the one with the diver
Oh
where he's
yeah.
upside down.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
I also have your on the bookshelf back there. I have a lot of sketchbooks. See your sketchbooks over there.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's down in this section, right?
Honestly, if I could, that would just be the thing I would just do is like just sketchbooks.
I know.
From
Well, what you do is you essentially first well, I'm going to take you back to your Western Cthulhu thing. You start
Yeah.
pumping that out, pumping that out, pumping that out, and then you go, oh, by the way, I have this story that goes with it, and the story doesn't matter. It's the art
Yeah.
in the book. The story just here's the thing. Even
That
in
might
my
actually
world, the story is the
that might
low
actually
tier thing.
be yeah.
People want people like stories,
Mhm.
but it's not this. We're not writers. We're artists. So the
Right.
art is what's selling it, right? And I keep telling people, like, whenever I got into it with my writers, I'm always like, the writing is important. I'm not saying it's not. The stories are important, but they're not what's moving the thing. It's the art
Mhm.
that's moving the thing. In your case, it's the art that's moving the thing. The stories are secondary. It's just an extra interesting bonus.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
I
What
would
is
like
happening with these two cowboys and this
yeah.
Cthulhu type creature?
I should probably yeah, I should probably set aside a sketchbook to focus entirely on that. Just at least then like it'll also help me generate some painting ideas and stuff. But I would love to do like in my mind like a book I would create would be very similar to how Greg Manchess constructed the
Mm-hmm.
Timberline
Yep.
book of his. I
Mm-hmm.
liked that a lot. And like I also like James Gurney's Dinotopia book where it, like sprinkled throughout kind of thing. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's a
so
perfect
there's a lot of like
example because there's all these little adventures, right?
yeah.
Just don't go as
So
crazy as Gurney. He's a
yeah,
special
no, with
sort of
his
crazy. Did you see that thing where I think it was Gurney, like him and his friends went to, uh, I think it was Denny's, dressed up as. Oh man, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. I think they dressed up like Vikings and all went to Denny's, and then they were playing like games there or
yes,
something.
that was him.
Okay,
Yeah.
and all I just kept thinking was if my friends and I did that, we'd probably get arrested. Like James is
Yeah.
just gonna. James Gurney was at the Spectrum we were at too. That's the first time I met him.
Yeah, he was. That was the first time I met him too.
Yeah. It's interesting how that show just fell apart.
Yeah.
That's a story for another day, though.
And it's the thing with companies. There's a life cycle to every company.
It just also comes down to like how you run it and how you treat the people who like LuxCon is a prime example of a company that treats their artists so well they will continue to keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
Like you feel like family. when you're at that
Hmm.
show. So you want to come back, and artists who don't show up one year are super sad about it because here's this artist family gathering
Yeah.
happening, and they're not there. You know this dance. You haven't been there in a couple years,
Yeah.
so
I
like I
submitted to
every year
the
I'm like, what am I gonna do if I don't go? Oh yeah, when do
yeah.
you hear about the main show?
I submitted to it, but we don't hear about that until I think like February of next
Okay,
year.
I'd be shocked if they don't let you in.
I don't know. I've submitted before. It's just, but it's like any other juried thing where it's like I
Dependent on the
think,
jury.
yeah, like you kind of know I want to say like unless you have immense hubris, you kind of know when your work would be ready to submit. Unless you are like just so brazen where you're like, yeah, like I should submit. Like it really is like utter
Oh,
dog
I know
shit.
some artists who are like, I
And there's
submitted.
some artists that are like that where they overestimate themselves. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I know where I know where I stand. Like, but
you could be in the main show. It's just you need to produce traditional work.
traditional work. Yeah, I get it.
That's
Oh,
all it
I
is.
get it. I don't know if I
But
really want to. I like being the showcase. It's like
hey,
chill.
if I remember right, Alan Williams is the same way. He's like, I like being in the showcase because I don't have to worry about the thing for a whole day. It's like, or a
Right.
whole week. It's like two
Whole
days and
week.
I'm done.
I mean, Alan stopped coming to San Diego too because he's just like, I think he's actually like an art director somewhere now. Last time I
Yeah, I think
checked,
so. I don't know. He's
something
yeah. I
like that,
wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be
or a
surprised. But yeah, no, it's
a
just
creative director. I think maybe that's what
it
it is.
totally depends on the jury. Like, I mean, you've seen that firsthand with Gen Con, where people that are like, "Oh, I got in last year. How can I not get in this year?" And it's like, well, jury, what?
Jury, it's
It's
jury.
gonna change.
Exactly. And they don't want to accept that. They're like, "Oh, I get in every." And that's well, the problem is because some artists got in have been getting in for 16, 17 years.
Yeah, but then the
And then
jury changes
all
their rules on how that goes, and now you're
and then all
out.
of a sudden they don't get in. They're super like
It's
salty
not
about
that
it.
your work is bad. It's just that they decide like, oh, we need fresh meat, or
Right.
we need a new perspective, or whatever the decision is to doing it.
They
Maybe
said
they
they
don't
want a
like
new artist
blue
in
that
there.
day, and you happen to have nothing but blue paintings.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I got into the vendor hall side of that because I definitely feel like I wouldn't have gotten in last year or early
Mm,
this year. So,
yeah.
all right. Well,
Do we have anyone? Well, we don't have anyone planned for next week. Are
I
we gonna
might.
have? Are we gonna have one more show before the end of the year? I
I
believe.
mean, I feel like we should try to do maybe like a holiday one because Christmas is in 2 weeks, right, or 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. So like this
Uh,
will go up. Uh, second, I'll just check my calendar. If I remember right,
not next week,
this will
not this
no.
week, but the next
This
week,
one will go up. This one will go up next week, right before Christmas, and then
right?
oh yeah. So this might actually be technically, even though we'll record it, this is the last show of the year,
Okay.
technically.
Yay!
Yeah. And
It's
then
just
like the next
us.
show we go will be like right in January, but we'll be recording that like at the end of this year. So
Yeah, I think so. For the next one, if anyone was interested, is I want to do trying to get us two artists who I want to get different opinions on artists and art directors, um,
mhm.
and just working with art directors, not specifically what the art director is doing. I want the artist perspective on it. So, I think we're gonna get Jason Engel back on to talk about it because
Oh,
he's worked
okay.
with a lot of art directors,
Yeah.
um, and he gave me some perspective after some stuff that happened with me, and then maybe Tawny. We'll see if she's available. Um, and then go from there. I'm hoping that
Okay.
will be an episode to record before because ideally, once we're in January, I'd like to try to do this 3-part series idea, but that depends if the people I'm talking to follow through.
Right. Well, whatever when we record next, which will be sometime during like Christmas week, presumably that episode that goes up like 5th of January, it's not going to be part of that. It won't
Yes,
be part
it'll
of the
stand alone. Yeah,
three
yeah,
artist series yet
yeah, yeah.
because it's still too
I mean, we
early.
could easily turn it into like the first video could be artists and art directors, and the next two could be art directors. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
a
I can
bad
do
way to
that.
do it. So that might be the
So,
third slot.
yeah.
So all right. Well, also on a quick side note, I've been trying to convert some of these episodes into Spotify. So hopefully next year, a bulk of these will be available on Spotify, and then instead of watching us, they can just listen to us in their cars
Hey,
or
cool.
wherever they
Very
listen to
awesome.
podcasts. Yeah,
Like,
if you
have you been doing it through like have you already been actively doing it through
so
Spotify
when I
or
looked into it, what it seems I can do, what appears I can do, is I can essentially download the YouTube videos. Here's the benefit
and
of
just
having
listen to the
premium. You
audio?
know, I talk about YouTube. If I have premium, I can download the videos. You know, but I should be able to grab it from the content direct. So what I would
Yeah.
do is download the video with the audio. According to what I'm reading on Spotify, it will rip the audio and video and separate them. And there's no specific video channel yet, but it archives it for when that thing activates. The video will be available there too, which I thought that's kind of cool. If it
Yeah. Okay.
if it does what it's supposed to do,
Right.
um, at the very least,
Always
it'll rip the
always the
audio
chance that
for
it
us.
doesn't.
Well, at the very least, it's gonna rip the audio for us, and then so I don't have to because I thought I had to download the video, bring it into something like Premiere or what's the other one called, Rush or whatever, um, and rip the audio out and then re-upload it. But it sounds like if I just drop the video in there, Spotify itself will pull the audio for me.
Okay.
So it should
All
be.
right.
I mean, it
Well,
sounds easy the way I'm saying it. So we'll see.
well then before we go, like where can we find you?
Oh yeah. Ancientones.net, AllenPanakal.com, AllenPanakal art on all socials except TikTok. Still. I checked it this afternoon. That dude still got it. So
It's gonna be there forever. That's fine. He'll
which
be
is
there and
fine.
then like TikTok will eventually become the old
I mean,
busted
my guess is once I
new
have
thing.
more product out, more stuff on the market, then they can't argue that I'm not who I say.
Yeah.
Also, as
Yeah.
I've learned that if you don't use TikTok or at least interact with it for X, they just fucking bounce you or ban you.
Really?
Yeah, one of our friends was on this afternoon, the private channel, talking, and he said that he got banned from TikTok, but he didn't do anything. And our best guess is he just didn't do anything. He didn't use it, check it,
Huh.
post to it, or anything. So they just bounced him. Or he
Huh.
didn't have two-factor turn on. Somebody got his account and hacked it.
That's also possible. All right. Interesting.
So where
Um,
can we find you?
uh, asidesart.com. You can sign up for the newsletter or the Patreon there. I also have, uh, I had it for a while now, but I started to do more with it. I have a YouTube channel as well, also asidesart dot or asidesart.
Yeah, you were
And I'm,
streaming on that for a little bit, and then you stopped.
well, yeah, it was like, yeah, I was doing it originally. That's why I started was for live stream stuff for Patreon, and then I decided like, oh, I'll just start putting out videos for like general people to build up. I actually originally planned to do talk about like failures of goals and stuff. I was planning to do some live stream stuff this year because I got my camera set up a little better. Actually, I don't know if it can even show in the video or
We
not,
can
but
see the
there's a
lights.
rail. Yeah, do you see the rail that's between them now?
The blue
Like,
rail.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I have that now for my camera, so I can actually position it better with the artwork. So I originally had like a long telescoping arm, but
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was only so far out it could get from the piece, and I
Gotcha.
wasn't able to capture like the whole piece. This allows me to actually get like a whole larger size piece in the frame and be like, okay, cool. This is like I can
That's
actually show
cool.
the whole thing. Yeah, I got that at like Black Friday kind of deal. So I was like, cool, pick that up and works perfectly. T track.
I need
Yeah,
something
no,
like that
I'm
for spell table.
yes, yeah. Like so yeah, I'm hoping yeah, I am hoping I can kind of do some live streams at some point, but again, it's a time thing. It's just like figuring out like when do I want to schedule that and then
Right.
set that time aside and stuff. It likely would have to be like in the evening kind of deal cuz
Same.
more
Yeah.
yeah,
And you got to plan
same
like for the
thing.
week.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see where it is. But in the meantime, I've been using it to post like time lapses and stuff. I just posted one for my Krampus painting. I have
Oh yeah.
another one in the works, but it's a time lapse of a tutorial that I'm going to offer on Gumroad, and I still need to record the audio for that Gumroad tutorial. So it's kind of like in holding pattern until I can set that aside to do that.
Yeah,
But
time,
yeah,
man. You gotta manage that
yeah.
time.
I need time cards. Someone give me time cards for Christmas.
Your wife's got to give you time cards.
No, she needs time cards too. We both need time cards.
You've got a conundrum. Um,
Yeah.
all right, well, hour and 20,
Cool.
not so bad. Um, all right, well, thanks everyone's watching,
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
hopefully in 2024 we'll have our shit together. No promises, because
We'll see.
we operate on a whim here. So, all right, let me stop this thing here. It's interesting to me that people are still signing up for the Tip Twitch channel.
Oh, really?